This episode of the Golf Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com. Use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. We're also brought to you by the Hockey Gambling Podcast brand new YouTube page. The Hockey Guys are giving away a hoodie to celebrate their new YouTube channel. Register today at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/HGP. All right, DJs, welcome back. It is Steve Schirmer here riding solo. It's a little early in the morning, I think, for Boston Capper. He's probably just rolling out of bed, but it's me in a very snowy Rochester, New York. It'll be nice then to break down a Hawaiian golf course and look at something that actually is green and warm here. But yeah, today we're going to break down the Sony Open. Right now we got the Century Tournament Champions going on round 3. I'm probably not going to hit an outright. I got Cantlay and Post, and I think 4 back, but everybody's going low today. They would probably need to get like a 62 or something in order to hit, but a lot of my positionals are in play, so I'll be sweating that out along with some football. So I mean, like last week, it seemed like I got a pretty good response. I will be screen sharing both Google Earth and some DataGolf stuff. I'll walk you through what I'll be looking for at this tournament. This is, it's one we've seen a lot. It's a very easy scoring tournament. When we get to some of the predictive skill sets, though, that's a little challenging because DataGolf basically just nothing matters here. But I'll walk you through sort of what it's trying to tell you and maybe what you should go for, and we'll go from there. Hopefully the internet connection holds up. I was having a little bit of issues before this. If not, we might have to stop and I might have to restart. Maybe make my producer do a little bit of work. But let's go over the field for the Sony Open. So this is the first of the non-signature events. If you don't know how this works, basically what is going to happen is between the signature events, there is a little play-in series. It's any regular events that you can, accumulate your FedEx Cup points for the entire year. But you also, there's, whoever gets the most points, or they're in the top 5 of points accumulated during these next couple events, they get into the next signature event. I know that sounds complicated. I fumbled through that myself. This is what the PGA Tour has decided that they're going to do. But basically what this is doing now is promoting guys who are playing signature events who are already qualified because they're in the top 50. They're exempt for all of them. They're not going to show up. And, there's some good names in this field, and I'll highlight a few of them. But overall, though, this is going to be a pretty weak event, very top heavy. I think the odds board, I shared it with, I think my producer actually shared it on X. What I thought the top of the odds board was going to be, it's going to be really short odds. There's also a trend of guys who play the Century Tournament Champions the week before ends up winning because they don't have as much course rust. With so many players playing that event last week and showing up this week, that trend is probably going to continue again. But I think the most interesting name at the Sony Open this week, who will not be at the top of the odds board, is the return of Will Zalatoris. Obviously, we saw him at the Hero World Challenge. This is his first return to the PGA Tour. It did not go very well for Zalatoris at the Hero. He did birdie his opening hole, but after that, it was pretty bad. It was mostly a lot of course rust, I feel like, around the green with the putter. I think he also is using, it's not quite the anchor putter that's anchored to your chest here. It's the, I think he's like grips it like this. So he didn't look good, though. But he's had a month. That was just his first return back. It's always nice to see Will Zalatoris, back on the PGA Tour. It's a fiery guy. It's a guy with personality that people like. The PGA Tour needs guys like that. And if he's going to be contending and doing very well, that's ultimately very good for the tour. Another guy of note here, obviously, he won't be at the top of the odds board, but Gary Woodland's back this week. Very great. He's coming back for this event. If you didn't know, he had surgery to remove a brain tumor shortly before the Ryder Cup. And I think the fact that not only is he still with us, but he came back to the PGA Tour this quickly, I think that's great. And even if he's not on your betting card, or maybe he knocks one of your guys out for a positional at the end, root for Gary Woodland this week. That's obviously a very scary illness to have. He's had a lot of challenges with his family and medical stuff in the past too. In fact, he's coming back, top player. It'll be good to see him there. But otherwise, some of the other names are here. Ludwig is here. I think he's going to be the tournament favorite, probably at 10-1, 12-1. Hatton is going to be here. Fitzpatrick's here. Hideki is here. Eric Cole, JT Poston, Russell Henley's, those types of guys who typically play the Sony Open. They will be here as well. So before we start getting into the golf course, why don't we take a quick commercial break? And then I will start going over Google Earth, walk you through the golf course, walk you through the history of the course, the brief history, and we'll get to it. All right, so let's start off by talking about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the way to play alongside your favorite fantasy players all season long. NFL, NBA, NHL, college basketball, and college football, and golf, by the way. Simply pick your higher or lower on favorite players' fantasy stats and cash in. If you're going to play Fantasy Underdog today for the Century Tournament Champions, they did adjust a lot of their lines. They ended up increasing their birdie rates and their, the round scores. From what I saw from the weather forecast earlier, it's going to be dead calm conditions. I would expect probably the average score is going to be 5 under. So pound the highers and the lowers on the round. Pound the highers on the birdies, lowers on the round scores. So watch along, make your picks, and maybe make a little cash over on Underdog's mobile app or website, underdogfantasy.com. And when you sign up with the promo code SGPN, Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. It's Underdog Fantasy, promo code SGPN. And we're also brought to you by the Hockey Gambling Podcast hoodie. They just launched your new YouTube channel. In order to celebrate that, they're giving away a free hoodie, a Hockey Gambling Podcast hoodie. So go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/HGP to enter the contest. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/HGP. All right, let's go to Google Earth and let's go over Waialae. Let me just add to the stage. Hopefully this doesn't crash the internet. There we go, right there. All right, so let me zoom out, just get a high level. Okay, there you go. So this is Waialae. This is located right outside of Honolulu. This was a Seth Rayner design. He built it, I think, before his death in 1926. And it's a private country club. There is the Kala Hotel right here, and there's the beach right there. I think if you are staying at the hotel, you might be able to get on, but this is a private country club. This is one you can really walk on, unlike the Century there last week. But listen, this is, tight tree line, palm tree lined, classic design. Hasn't had a whole lot of changes over the years. And this is a different type of golf than what you're going to see that we saw last week at the Plantation course. That one was very driver heavy. The ball was moving a whole lot once it hit the ground. It's a very flat golf course. Last week you had to kind of account for different yardages with, you saw it, at the Century this week where Max Homa went to the 7th hole on I think it was 520 yards. And he ended up hitting the longest drive in history on the PGA Tour, 477, and had a flip wedge in. So this isn't that, though. The yardage that what you're going to see at this place is the actual yardage. Just taking you through a tour of the golf course. So this is actually the back nine for the members. This is the opening. They flip the nines for the tournament. The first hole, it's a long par 4, and Seth Rayner actually designed this kind of as a template of the road hole, and there's some similarities to it that I'll walk you through. So obviously with the road hole, you got the hotel there and the road, and you got a whole lot of room over on the left. This is at St. Andrews, by the way. Similar concept here. You have a whole lot of room where I'm circling over here to kind of bail left, but you don't have a great angle to the green. You got to carry over this bunker. I think this green slopes pretty hard from left to right here. But over on the right, though, you have a great angle into the green here. You got to carry this bunker. You have a large tree here. This bunker really isn't in play anymore for these guys, but you've seen some guys, drive it down here behind this tree. It's definitely a nuisance. So, this hole definitely promotes staying on the right side of the fairway here. There's some shades to it. It's the next couple holes. There's a water hazard over here. I think really the only water hazards in play at this tournament. Really similar holes. Both the water hazards are over on the left here, short par 4s. And then you go back around the property, do a long par 4 or par 3 4th. The 5th here, this little canal is not in play. Guys tend to hit about 3 wood about here and have about 150 yards or 160 yard shot in. And then you can see kind of the positional nature of this, of this golf course here. Listen, you got 2 bunkers here, got to squeeze it, your tee shot to hit it right here. You got out of bounds over here. You got trees over here. Guys aren't really hitting driver a whole lot. It's really just a lot of plotting, positional golf. Same thing, hole number 8 here. Yeah, a couple bunkers over here. Obviously, a lot of trees, protecting the fairway, really narrow here. And then the 9th hole here. This is one of the easier par 5s on the PGA Tour schedule. I think last year the average score was 0.7 under par. Only 506 yards. You do have out of bounds over here, but I know guys have been using the driving range fence here for TIO relief. Really scummy when they've done that. I think the guy in a bogey. I think it might have been Roger Sloan. maybe a couple of, I don't know how I randomly know that, but I think Roger Sloan. I'm sorry if I'm slandering you, Roger Sloan, if you're watching, but he tried to claim that he wanted to hit a left-handed shot over here, but because of where the fence was, he got TIO out of it. Pretty ridiculous, but if you avoid hitting it over here, this is a obvious birdie hole. Then you got a short par 4 10th where guys can, drive a up to the apron here. 11th, and then going back around the property, a lot of similar positional par 4s coming up here. The 12th is only 440, 13th, middle of the dog leg is about 280 here. Yeah, basically play positional golf over here. Same thing swinging over to 14. Again, hit towards the middle of the dog leg. You're not really seeing guys really hit it over this dog leg. And then the 17th hole here. We'll just zoom right to that. This is the Redan hole. And this green was reconstructed and renovated, or not renovated, restored, I think 4 or 5 years ago. Guys complained because they felt like it was too firm here, and I'll zoom in. Basically, if you don't know what a Redan green is, basically it's a front to back sloping green with some bunkers over here. It also cants pretty hard from right to left. So if you miss in these bunkers over here, you don't really have much of a shot to get it close to the hole, especially if the pin's over here. If you're long, that makes it tough too. It's not a very easy par 3. It's 194 yards. If you got some wind coming off here, that can make it challenging. But if there's no wind, if you're a pretty good iron player, there's not a whole lot of versus. And then number 18, the other par 5 on this golf course. I actually like this par 5. It reminds me a lot of the closing hole of Southwind, where obviously you got the water here, but you got a couple bunkers. I think there was speculation maybe 3 or 4 years ago. The guys are actually going to try and go down the 10th fairway here, to kind of avoid all this. They made this out of bounds at this point. So, and this isn't a very easy driving hole, especially when it's playing pretty firm. You run, even with a 3-wood, the ball can run into this bunker here. You could, overcook it into these bunkers over here. I mean, you could try hitting driver, but it's not easy to hit a right to left shot, with just some of the technology of these days. But, if you can execute the shot though, it's only 551 yards, sets up about, like a 220 yards or so shot into the green here. There's a little collection area down here they got to worry about. But, overall look, I mean, like this is a different contest than what it was last week. Last week was a lot of driver and a lot of short irons. This is more plotting, positional golf, more mid irons, I would say, as we'll go over in a little bit. And also too, you'll see in my article a couple other features I have about this place. But, why don't we take another quick break? Let's go, and then we'll go into some of the stats I'm looking for, some of the gambling leads I'm looking for this week. So let's talk about the GameTime.co. And listen, it's week 18 of the NFL season. Maybe you're trying to scramble right now to find a ticket, find the lowest price. That can be a big hassle and a lot. Maybe you're going through some stress right now. But if you go to the GameTime app, you can find pretty much every single event you could be looking for. They got flash deals for any last minute events you want to go to. They're really easy to find. They also have images of all your seats, so you know exactly what you're going for. So they got concerts, theater, plays, sporting events, anything you could want over at GameTime.co. So snag tickets right now at GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code CFBX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code CFBX for $20 off your purchase on the GameTime app. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And we're also about to try Hall of Fame bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame bets, the sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Enter any parlay idea to Hall of Fame bets' revolutionary parlay optimizer tool to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for entire parlay. Sort all players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. So stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame bets app or visit HOFBets.com and use code SGPN to get 50% off your first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame bets. Okay, let's get rid of Google Earth here. And so let's start going over just some general information about Waialae here. So unfortunately, the GCSAA, they have not released the 2024 specs for this tournament. I don't anticipate any real changes to the golf course from last year. I just did a quick Google search, didn't see anything changing. Usually there's some subtle tweaks they make it, but it's not really material to how the golf course goes. So this is a par 70. This is only 7,044 yards. Greens run about 11, 12 on the centimeter. Again, with these, Hawaiian greens run by the coast here. If there's a lot of wind, can't run these greens all that quick. It doesn't look like there's gonna be a whole lot of wind. And I'll show you in a little bit for this week. So maybe they can get them up a little quicker, but overall, typically one of the slower greens on the PGA Tour. Average green size, 7,100 square feet in area. That's above average here. That's why, you see a really high green regulation rates because there's large greens. There is only, I showed you on the Google Earth there. There's really only one water hazard in play. It's that little pond between the second and third hole. There is a canal there, but no one's really hitting into it. Everybody's hitting over it. As far as agronomy goes, so the GCSA has never been descriptive for whatever reason about what type of breed. I know some people care about that, whether it's Tip Eagle or Champion, whatever. They just list it as Bermuda grass. And I've never been able to find exactly what type. I did end up finding, though, and I don't know if this source is credible. It was apparently on Wikipedia. It is tri-dwarf Bermuda. That is the exact strain of green on the greens. As far as what it is on the approaches, the fairways, I don't exactly know. I don't know if this is even verified, but just overall, though, kind of like what I talked about last week, if you just focus on just overall Bermuda putting stats, you'll get your answer. And most of the guys that tend to do pretty well here, they tend to do really well putting on Bermuda. So I would just look for all your non-overseeded Bermuda stuff, plug that into your models, take a look at who's good on those types of courses, and you should be fine here. The rough is 3 inches. That is actually, I think, up from last year it was up from what it was. And I think they wanted to basically add another defense to this golf course because they felt like scoring was starting to get a little bit out of control if there wasn't any weather. I think Hideki had just won at 23 under. This golf course also has never really been the most penal if you miss a fairway. So maybe by adding a little higher Bermuda, which can be a little bit gnarly, that presented much of a challenge. Unfortunately, it didn't really do much for this tournament. It made it a little more penal to hit it into the rough. Basically, the difference between your score on a hole if you hit in the rough and what you would if you're in the fairway. It was a little higher than the PGA Tour average, but still nothing really to write home about. So this still is a golf course, especially if it's really soft, if there's no wind. Definitely one that, guys can take advantage of. And, speaking of which, we're going to look at the weather forecast. So looks like on Monday and Tuesday, a lot of rain coming, some wind, really gnarly conditions. The guys are not going to have a very good time with their practice rounds. But after that, starting on Thursday, maybe a little bit of wind, in the afternoon. So maybe a slight favor towards guys coming in the morning. But this is going to be a really soft golf course coming in. There's not going to be a whole lot of wind, especially throughout the first couple of days and actually into the weekend. Dead calm conditions on Saturday and Sunday with based on this weather forecast. God, these guys are going to hit a lot of birdies. If you're somebody who wants to go to underdog or bet round props, definitely bet over on birdies, under on round scores. These guys are going to eat this place up. Not only is it going to make it very easy to hit the greens as well, but because of the narrow nature of the fairways, I'll make it a little longer, but this is already a short golf course. It's going to keep the balls in the fairway. Like in firmer conditions, the balls, because if it's really narrow, once it hits the fairway, it might bound into the rough. But if it's really soft like this, we're going to get this much rain, they're going to be able to hit fairways at a very high rate with whatever club they really use. And they're going to have, mid irons into really soft greens, lots of birdies this week. So who are going to be the guys that get some of those birdies? Well, let's actually look, last couple of years. Let's refresh everybody who the winner was. So last year, Siwoo Kim, Cabber's boy, minus 18, thanks to a choke job from Hayden Buckley on the last hole there. But Siwoo hit a final around 64. He definitely earned it. The first couple of rounds, I think there was some wind, so scoring wasn't all that good. But over the weekend, though, -2 on Saturday, minus 1.74 on Sunday. Most of the holes play under par here. Here's how number 9, by the way, you see just, 42 birdies, 28 pars, 5 eagles, only 1 bogey last year in the final round. 2022, a tournament that I don't really like to go back to because I had Russell Henley. Let's go back to the results page here. Hideki beats Russell Henley in a playoff after Henley had a 5-shot lead after 9. And I got text from my co-host saying this is over, and he was really butthurt that he didn't have Henley because he hates Henley, and I had Henley. He didn't know about it. I think he actually knew, but he wanted to basically try and sabotage it in his, his evil ways. But Hideki had a great back 9, final round 63. Like, people want to point to the fact that Henley choked. He had a 65 that day. Like, he stopped making putts on the back 9, but I think in hindsight, Hideki Matsuyama led the field in putting on a Bermuda golf course that week. Go figure. It's just golf at that point. Really easy scoring conditions, though. It was 2 under was the average score. Average score was 3 under on Sunday. 2021, Kevin Na won over Chris Kirk and Joaquin Neiman. This was the tournament that actually Chris Kirk needed to do well, and he got his card. Kevin Na wins at 21 under thanks to a 61 on Saturday. Overall score minus 2.25 for the tournament. Again, just on the weekend, guys killed it. 2020, though, that's the one where that was only 11 under, won by Cam Smith. Really bad weather conditions that year. I think it was cold. They got some rain. They got some wind during the tournament. And, that made it kind of fun. It wasn't just a birdie fest at that point. But, this tournament's not relevant because it was what I just showed you with the weather forecast. It's going to be dead calm. So you're not really getting anything out of this one. So why don't we go to the course fit tool? That's what I alluded to earlier. Obviously, I love using this on DataGolf. This basically tries and tell you what type of golfers are expected to do well at Waialae. And this is one of the least helpful predictive skill set charts they have. No correlation at all as far as what guys do driving. Basically, you can be long, you can be short. Doesn't really matter. Those types of guys can do well. Those guys can do not so well. You would think there'd be a higher correlation of guys who would be really good at finding fairways. Actually, it's lower than PGA Tour average, so that doesn't help you. Iron play is obviously still important. It's the most important predictive skill set going to the tournament. This actually has slightly less predictive value at this golf course than others. And putting, again, you would think, okay, on Bermuda, tends to be guys who putt pretty well to, win this thing. Less than predictive value with putting coming into the tournament as far as what they're going to do. The only thing that actually stands out as some sort of predictive power is around the green. It's actually a lot higher. And actually, let me take off the relative importance for let's make everything just equal. You can see just kind of how skewed it is and how unpredictable everything else is. How I would explain that is because this is a golf course that it's not one with a driver. It's a lot of plotting. It's a lot of positional golf. It's short. There's only a certain number of golf courses where a guy who doesn't possess a lot of length on the PGA Tour and maybe gets by with some wedge play and around the green play to keep their card, there's only so many of those golf courses that they can contend at. This is one of them. So, this is going to give those guys a better chance to be towards the top of the leaderboard. This tournament also doesn't draw the best fields. So generally the weaker players on the PGA Tour tend to be your shorter, pipsqueaks kind of that basically have to grind around the green in order to save strokes to keep their card. And I think that's why this is so skewed this way. But everything else though, like I showed you in the Google Earth, there might be some opportunities to hit driver and get aggressive, cut some corners, but overall though, everybody kind of plays everything around in front of them. I kind of equate it as if you're a fan of NASCAR with Daytona or Talladega, they got the restrictor plates kind of make everything kind of even. I would say it's kind of like that. It basically limits what the entire field can do with the other skill sets. So some other correlated golf courses, there's a lot of ones that just haven't been played a whole lot in the last couple of years, but the ones that played a whole lot. Colonial, going over the Google Earth, I definitely see a lot of Colonial, especially some of the dog-like par fours. They're, pinched in with some fairways, tree line, positional golf, a lot of Colonial in this place. Austin Country Club too, a lot of short irons in that one. That's also a golf course that doesn't really promote a particular style. That one, this is kind of similar to that place. Harbor Town, Sea Island, You probably are not surprised given some of the guys who do well here versus there. A lot of crossover at those places. TBC San Antonio, that was a surprisingly, that's very driver heavy. But apparently that is highly correlated to Waialae as far as success. TBC Southwind, another one that isn't really one with the drivers, more plotting, positional nature. That's a correlated golf course. TBC Summerlin, that's a shorter golf course with a lot of birdies, so that makes sense. Port Royal, another short golf course. So basically, a lot of your shorter golf courses are pretty correlated as far as guys who typically do well. Those places, as here. So those are probably some good comp courses to look at. If you've never done this before, looked at or bet this Waialae before, take a look at some of the results of those places, and you should do okay. Let's now go to this page. This is my favorite page, the actual details of the tournament. And let's start first with the how in tournament you're able to separate yourself. And last year, not helpful at all. Driving was not as impactful as the average PGA Tour event at the 2023 Sony Open as it is, at others. It was about, distance and accuracy had the same about correlation towards their contribution to strokes gained off the tee that week as they do the PGA Tour average. Nothing really to see there. Iron play wasn't as important as far as separating yourself as the other events. Same thing around the greens. Actually, nothing's really all that important. That's actually something I also want to talk about. Like this is, I think DataGolf measures the difficulty as far as around the green compared to other places. This is 78th out of 87th at Waialae. So even though this is one where typically guys are really good around the green, tend to do well here, not only is it really easy conditions around the green, like even from bunkers or fairways or the rough, like it's not that really good up and down. It's not making a big dent as far as like you're not gonna be able to get up and down and win this tournament. Essentially, it's a lot less than what it is than the regular PGA Tour event. Really, the only thing that has a higher boost to your overall total stroke change is through putting here. It's higher than your PGA Tour average, and that's pretty consistent through most of the years, except for not in 2022. Take it back. In 2022, mostly driving, it was through your accuracy. That was how you were really able to separate yourself that year. But again, iron playing around the green didn't do a whole lot to separate yourself in the tournament. Putting was about PGA Tour average. 2021 in really calm, benign conditions, again, turned into, where you were able to separate yourself with the putter. In this tournament, though, accuracy still, if you hit more fairways, you tend to do a little better than most anybody else. This one actually promoted a little more longer guys. I remember that one in 2021 when Kevin Na won, even though he's one of the shorter hitters. That was a really firm golf course. Guys were hitting it a long way. So if you're able to keep it in the fairway, you're getting higher driving distances and really shorten up the golf course. That's how I'll explain that. And I'm not even going to go back to 2020 because that's not relevant to what we're going to see this week. And then the proximity buckets here. This is consistent throughout the years. I'll go back to 2023 because that's the most recent one. There is a heavy emphasis on shots between 125 and 225. And really what I want to focus on here is what I'm circling right here, the shot from 150 to 200. That makes up about 45% of your shots for the entire tournament. So, obviously you got, your short irons here, but it's no different really than your average PGA Tour event. You got some longer approach shots, mostly in the par threes, and the 2 par fives, but just because of the high volume of mid-length par fours on this golf course where you can't really shorten up a whole lot with a driver, a lot of shots from 150 to 200. And that's actually something I'm going to make a change for this week. Typically what I do is, DataGolf, they offer strokes gained per shot that I just download to Excel. Usually I just look at it from under 150 and over 150. This one I'm actually going to make an effort because of how pronounced and how higher volume of shots between 150 and 200 as there is in the PGA Tour average. I'm actually going to take it under 150, 150, 200, and over 200 this week and try and basically estimate your strokes gained because I want that to stand out on my spreadsheet. I want to be able to see, okay, what do you do from 150 to 200, at this golf course? So, and then, one last thing, I forgot to put it up on the window so I can actually, have it handy, but let's go to course history. And it's not going to filter everybody's in the field, but most of the guys who typically play this event are going to show up. So let's see. A lot of guys who don't play this event anymore. So are at the top there. Oh, because they have a lot of rounds. Okay. So Kyle Morikawa is a guy he's only played it twice, but he's got he does very well here. Really good iron player. JT, he won it back in 2017. Really good iron player. Corey Connors, really good iron player. Doesn't rely a whole lot on the driver in order to get around. Justin Rose, great iron player. No longer really is, a great driver, but because of how good of an iron player he is, he does very well this event. Ben Griffin, Taylor Montgomery, Mark Leishman, DJ's even done all right here. Like that's kind of goes to show, but when I showed you the predictive skill set chart, not really a pronounced type that actually can go here and like dominate. Like it's not just all bombers, not just all short hitters. Like there's a huge mix of guys who can go here and do very well. Russell, but like I mentioned though, a Russell Henley or a Webb Simpson or a Luke Donald or a Matt Kuchar. These guys have all played it a lot. These guys have all played it very well in their career. So that's really what I'm going to be looking for. A whole lot of guys who are going to make a lot of birdies, really well in Bermuda, but I'm going to focus a lot on that 150 to 200 range this week for handicapping purposes. It's kind of similar to what I looked at for Century Tournament Champions, but that was way more driver heavy. So I kind of wanted to look more for guys who, like hitting driver a lot and were good from really short irons. This is more, short to mid iron range, and then look at basically birdies. And then everything other than that, I'm not really caring too much about. So, all right. So that's it. Let me get rid of this and go to the solo layout. Thank you for joining me this Sunday morning. Good luck with any bets for the Century Tournament Champions you are sweating right now. And this week on the Golf Gambling Podcast, Matt Gannon will be here on Monday, Breakdown DFS. We will do our betting show on Tuesday. So yeah, we will see you then. Enjoy the rest of the century and enjoy the final week of the NFL season this week. Take care, everybody.